Do you know, if I had to pick, it would be this. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to get into the Steam Deck versus the Switch 2. I want to set expectations up top now. I'm not going to get into the spec of these machines. I feel like that's much easier to do like on paper side by side in one of those like, you know, it's got this, it's got this. I don't care about that stuff, and I'm hoping to appeal to those of you who also don't care about that stuff. You want to know, how does it feel in your hand? Which one do you prefer in your day-to-day lives? I also don't want to talk too much about the emulation and the customization, the endless customization options with the Steam Deck, because I am making this video for casual gamers who literally just want to buy something and straight out of the box, how does it play? I also don't really think that it's fair to compare these two machines like that, but at face value, straight out of the box, let's say you've just had them both delivered and go from there. First of all, the price. So for a comparable model, this is an LCD 256GB Steam Deck. It's $349, whereas for the Switch 2, $395. But what do you get inside the box? In the Switch box, you get a dock, a charger, an upgraded HDMI, and a Joy-Con grip to use your Joy-Cons as a controller more comfortably. In the Steam Deck box, you just get the Steam Deck, a charger, and a carrying case. A carrying case that I have, honest to God, never used, so that's not really any benefit to me, but you don't even get a dock. So when you're considering those two prices, consider the things that you may have to buy as accessories that you already get with the Switch 2. So you've set up both the consoles. How easy are they actually to navigate? I honestly thought I was going to give this one to the Switch because initially, you know, it's got that brighter UI. The whole thing feels kind of not childlike, but definitely child-friendly. It definitely feels like, oh, it's just simpler. It's the whole thing of being brighter, I think, is a little bit of a trick to your mind that I go, oh, this is definitely going to be the simpler of the two. But then when I looked again, I thought, no, it's just a preference. It's just a matter of preference. The one thing that I did used to give to Steam, and I definitely used to prefer on that platform, was the library. I didn't enjoy, like, you had to go back. It was not as simple for me to just look at the library of games that I had downloaded or at some point installed onto my Switch. Whereas for the Steam Deck, it was just like, oh, these are all the games that you've got access to. Every game that you've got on Steam, even games that aren't technically optimized for the Steam Deck or even controller, you can see at a glance everything you've ever downloaded on Steam. Whereas it wasn't the case with the Switch. Now the Switch 2 has their own game library in these virtual game cards. It's pretty comparable. I really like that on both consoles now, you can see all of your games at a glance. But I think that they are both just as easy to navigate. It's just personal preference as to whether you prefer the light or the dark interface. I also haven't looked whether or not you can change that, but it makes no difference to me. So let's get into the shop. If you are familiar with the Steam app, it's basically all exactly the same, whereas the Nintendo eShop has been widely criticized for a multitude of reasons. But I would say, like, for the most part, the biggest pro to getting something like a Switch or a PS4 or whatever is when you go into the shop for this console, everything should be optimized for it. Everything should be like, you buy something from the Switch eShop or the Nintendo eShop, and it's like, that is going to be perfect for this. I know it's going to work. Maybe I pay a little bit more for it, but you know it's going to be like, this is a perfect game. Not so much at all. Not only that, but there have been some people saying that there are games that aren't entirely appropriate. There are games that just, there's lots and lots of titles that seem to have slipped through the maybe non-existent filter to get onto the eShop. And beyond all the should it be there, should it not be there, the stuff that just doesn't work, things that they're just not playable games, they are broken. It's almost impossible to get any kind of refund or really to get anywhere with the customer service at Nintendo. And that would be a major con for me. If I was spending a lot of money, and some of these games are huge money on Nintendo, I mean, I can't imagine that it's not going to work when you're talking about like a £70 game. But if you are spending money on the Nintendo eShop, I kind of feel like you have to be prepared for that is money that has been spent and it's not ever coming back to you. If you decide that this is not really the game that was advertised, tough luck, that's the game that you've got now. Whereas on Steam, not only can you get a refund if you need to, and I have exercised that several times, either because something's been advertised as this will work with the spec that I've got of my Steam Deck and it doesn't, or maybe I've started playing it and been like, this is really not for me, and I've just gotten a refund really simply, like within the day. That's a huge, huge pro. So if it came to it, if it was like, I've got the option of buying it here or here. I'm gonna buy the game that I'm not sure about on the platform that I know offers refunds. On top of that, Steam has player or gamer or whatever it's called, profile reviews. When you've played a game, you can say, oh, I love this game, it works really well, or better, I hated this game, don't buy it. That is something that you have access to both within the deck and on the app and on the website. It's available. You don't have to like go looking for reviews, go looking for gameplay like you would if you were looking for a review of a Nintendo Switch game. It's all accessible and it's like available to you at the point of purchase. You can see how many stars has this got? Is this worth taking a risk on? So on paper, the most obvious difference between these two consoles is the Switch is going to give you the Nintendo exclusives, whereas Steam is going to give you access handheld to PC games. Obviously, that's the biggest thing. You already know that. If that's the only factor, then you already know which decision you're going to make. And we'll get to that at the end. I'll tell you what I feel. But that's kind of the biggest difference between the two. On top of that, you've then got the virtual versus physical. I know a lot of people feel very strongly about physical game cartridges, and obviously the Switch 2 has access to all of this massive back catalogue of Switch games from the last, 8 years? All these games that you can buy secondhand that'll be a lot cheaper. You can have a physical library of games that you can play on the Switch potentially forever. Although, I'm not sure if there's any information out about this at the moment. I know that the Switch 2 isn't natively running the Switch 1 games as the Switch 1 does. It is emulating the Switch 1. So I don't know whether or not Switch 2 is going to support all those physical game cartridges in perpetuity. I don't know. Or maybe it's safer to keep the Switch 1 for the Switch 1 games. I don't know. But on top of that, it definitely feels like Nintendo are moving towards the digital. So Steam is obviously 100% digital downloads. There are only digital games that you can get for Steam, whereas Nintendo has this back catalogue of physical cartridges. They seem to be moving towards the virtual game cards. So within the next few years, that may not even be an issue because it may be just the same for both. But the fact that there is this back catalogue available and there is going to be this secondhand market of all these games that are currently still compatible with Switch 2, that could sway you one way or another. So you've chosen a game. Do you have space for it? We talked about the 256 gig already, and I think that's plenty. Initially, I did order and then I cancelled an order for an SD card for the Switch 2 because I was like, I need to get, what if I can't? I realised it was probably enough space. I haven't run out of my 256 gig internal memory in my Steam Deck yet. I have got the SD card there ready if I need to, but I haven't needed it yet. And I've downloaded quite a few games on there. However, the difference between the SD card that I'm putting in my Steam Deck and the previous Switch and everything I have and the Switch 2 is they only are compatible with these SD Express cards. Currently, I believe the only people making those are SanDisk, which is usually the place that you would buy them from anyway, but SanDisk and Nintendo themselves, which makes them slightly less accessible, which makes them more expensive. You can't just go out and buy one tomorrow. They won't probably be in your local supermarket, like you could just pick up an SD card. And when I'm looking on Amazon, it's days. It's not coming tomorrow. It's days before you can pick one up. They've kind of monopolized the market a little bit, which means that they are not going to be on offer. You can't get third-party ones yet. Just generally, it's a little bit frustrating because they are more expensive than they previously were, and they've kind of made it so that this is the only thing that you can use. If you do want to be downloading a ton of these digital virtual game cards, which is what they are moving towards, and all of this additional stuff for even the physical games that you already have, because we've got these updates, and it's just something to bear in mind. I would like to believe that it is future-proofing, and they're doing that so that in the future they don't have to change any hardware. They don't have to say we've done a Switch 2 point whatever. But right now, it could be frustrating if you've got a lot of digital downloads. So how do they feel in your hands? This is the most important part. Most important part for me, beyond what games it can play, is how does it feel in your hands? And let me tell you, very different. Now I'm going to take this. I've got a brace on the back of this one, which I will tell you why momentarily. And I did make a whole video about this as and when I picked up this, what do we call this, a grip? But I'll take this off just for the purpose of showing you what actually they look like out of the box. So yeah, quite different. In terms of size, the profile of them is massively, massively different. The Switch 2 is teeny tiny, very, very thin compared to the Steam Deck, as you can see. But the problem is with this low profile, with this super thin, because you even the size, you're wow, that's absolutely incredible. I thought that at first, and it seemed to be a selling point. When everyone was talking about it, they were like, oh my God, but look, it's still so thin. Yeah, you pick it up and you're like, oh, that feels really nice. I like that. But then within like, I would say 2 hours, I didn't have a lot of time with it the first day that arrived because I was working. And I was like, oh, I'm really like, this is not comfortable in my hand. And holding it like that, even now, I can kind of feel there's nowhere for the palm of your hand to go because it's just this little corner. With it being wider, it's obviously a larger overall device than the original Switch. And also the screen is bigger, but it's still so thin. It was kind of awkward. But I tend to hold it like this. I'll be like on the sofa like this. I'm even holding it now for seconds. I don't know if it's a pressure point thing or what, but the thin edge of this with the weight and the size of it, it makes my hand go to sleep. And it's uncomfortable. Just being like this for seconds, I'm like, even my hand like that, it's not, my hand isn't holding it ergonomically, I suppose. It's not holding it in a comfortable way. I can see this being comfortable if you had it like on a desk and you're doing this. But the whole point for me of a portable console is you're holding it and it's comfortable to use on the go. And this, as is not comfortable to use on the go. So I bought this brace, whatever we're going to call it, which just slides on. I did do like a first impressions, but since then I can't recommend it enough. And then it has this little part that clips on to keep it in place. So now it's not moving around. It's called the Neo Grip from Savage Raven. It's fantastic. There are also multiple different handles that you put on, and I accidentally put 2 different ones on, and I don't hate it, honestly. I don't hate it. And it comes in different colours, but that now is just, this without the grip is unplayable handheld for me. And I don't know if it is, honestly, I don't know if it's my age, because I never had a problem with the first Switch. I know that it was smaller and it was lighter, but still, I never had a problem. Or if it's because I'm now used to the Steam Deck, because I almost exclusively game handheld now on the Steam Deck since getting this. When I first got this, I do remember thinking, oh, this is going to take some getting used to. It's like heavier. Is it going to be cumbersome? Is it going to be uncomfortable to hold for long periods of time? It's not. It isn't. I can tell you absolutely 100% this is more comfortable to hold. Even with this on it, this is still more comfortable to hold than the Switch 2. But without this, without the handles, I couldn't even compare. Comfortability, handheld. I know this is thick. I know this is a big console, but I think that you need a little bit of something to hold. You need something to grab onto. You do. It is a comfort grip, and it is necessary. Both the consoles are made out of like a hard plastic. Neither of them have got any kind of soft touch or rubbery anything. To me, it's kind of all much of a muchness. They also have like this very shiny screen, which if you're playing by a window is very annoying. I was on a train playing my Switch the other day, and I'm like, this is unplayable. I can't do this in the daytime. It was very frustrating. So I don't think I've played this much outside of the house because of the size of it. Whereas the Switch I used to always take with me places. So yeah, I think it would probably need like an anti-glare screen adding for me, but they are basically exactly the same. And then the Steam Deck has additional controls. So it's got like trackpads on the front. These can be used as like mouse action buttons. And then we've got additional triggers on the back. But honestly, for the majority of games, it doesn't need additional controls. I'm using most of the controls that I have already on the Switch. It's just, while we're comparing them, those are the physical differences. Is this just me? I wish, and I can't understand why it's not a thing, especially on like an expensive console. I wish that we had either lit up or at least glow in the dark buttons. Like this part here. I play on different platforms across different consoles, different controllers. I don't always remember which one's A, which one's X. It's frustrating. And so I'm playing at night watching TV. That's the majority of the time I'm playing. And I have to get my phone flashlight out to be like, which one's Y? Which one's... It's annoying. How is that not... The only thing I can think is nobody else is having that problem. And everybody else just remembers, because surely if it was a problem that lots of people were having, there would be a solution by now. And I even looked to see whether or not you could buy glow-in-the-dark stickers or buttons to go over, and not quite what I'm looking for. You can get glow-in-the-dark whole thing, glow-in-the-dark for like the Joy-Con-y things, the whatever these are called, but not for the like XYAB buttons, which I can't understand. So I think I'm going to make them watch this space. Watch this space, I'm going on Dragon's Den. No, I'm probably going to literally just make some stickers and stick them on. Because is it just me? While we're on the size of the consoles, actually, I'll take this back off because I do need to just compare travel size. Like, the Switch still wins. This is obviously, I mean, they're kind of similar, but it is obviously going to be easier to travel with the Switch. But then on top of that, you can still remove the Joy-Cons. So when I went away for the day the other day and I was going on the train, I wasn't sure whether or not I could get it in my bag. I could easily take off the Joy-Cons and then it's a much smaller situation in a handbag. But also, this, as large as it is, will still fit in my back pocket comfortably. I can still easily put my Switch in my pockets of my jeans. And I definitely cannot do that with a Steam Deck. A weird thing I have noticed when I'm taking off the controllers though, is I can put them on upside down. And I don't know what the reason would be. Like, why would you want to put them on upside down? Why would this be a capability? Because there's been a couple of times when I've put them on upside down and then I've put my whole brace thing on, gone to play it and been like, oh, I've got to take it off again and flip it around. I don't know if that's going to be a thing later. Like, why would we want to do that? Why would we need to? And if we can do that, it almost would make sense for me for the whole screen to be flippable. Again, I don't know why, but much like your phone, like maybe the way that you hold it upside down, it flips, and then it doesn't matter which way this is. I don't know, but maybe time will tell. Battery life, I will touch on briefly because again, I'm not getting into the specifics. I'm not doing like a full-on side-by-side test. Those videos are available if you want to get into it. Just from me casually playing, I haven't noticed a huge difference between the two. I haven't got exactly the same games. I've got like one game that I can play twice and it's like 2 Point Hospital. I don't think that that's a particularly heavy duty game. I just happened to have it because I could play it on Steam on my Mac before I had my Steam Deck. And then I also tried to download it onto my Switch, but I just didn't feel like it was, I don't think that that's a fantastic game, handheld. I don't think it's great with a controller, but you know, we are where we are, but that's the only thing I could really compare it with. Whereas a lot of the games that I'm playing on Steam are a little bit heavy duty. So I don't know. I feel like they're very similar battery life. I don't feel like one of them is draining much quicker than the other, but I'm not doing any scientific testing here. You can find that is available for you. But as a casual user, I'm not noticing a massive difference. I will say that occasionally I am hearing a big fan noise from the Steam Deck. It's not like crazy. I heard someone say that they wouldn't take it on a plane because it was so loud. It definitely wasn't. It wasn't that loud, but it does tend to overheat and I get a little bit of a whirring sound from it in the same way that you would get from a laptop. Whereas I don't really get that from the Switch or the Switch 2. But again, it's going to be dependent on the game. And a lot of the games that I'm playing on the Steam Deck, you might not even be able to play on the Switch 2. So it's kind of an unfair con to include in this, but I wanted to mention it just in case it was interesting to you. But yeah, battery life, they're kind of very similar. But neither of them, I feel like I could go out of the house and play for like masses of time without taking some kind of backup. Also, something really weird that happens occasionally on the Steam Deck that I have never experienced on either Switch is it will occasionally just not tell me I'm running out of battery. I don't have like a battery indicator in the corner. Occasionally it won't flash up with the low battery, or maybe I miss it. I don't know. It's definitely not as obvious as the Switch one. And then it just powers down and I'll lose progress if it's not an autosave game. So that's annoying. It's not happening often enough for it to be like a major issue, but it's something that's never happening on the Switch. So whether it be that it depends on the game I'm playing, maybe it blends in. There's no like ping or anything that comes up. Maybe it's that, or it's actually a glitch, but worth mentioning. Now, if you weren't most interested in how does this feel in my hands, then you are most interested in what does the gameplay look like. Honestly, there are going to be so many videos from people comparing pixels and backlighting and frame rate, but I just don't really care about the spec. When HDTV first came out, I cannot understate my disinterest in HDTV. Like, I just didn't care. I remember going to the shops and people would be like, wow, look at this. It's like, there's these flowers and look at the colors, are so amazing. And I was just like, I don't care. It was definitely not worth the kind of money that they were charging for those TVs at the time. It didn't appeal to me. I just didn't care. And to be fair, I have played quite a few farming sims recently and like life sims, and like Two Pixelia is a great example of this. And I'm like, how much of this game, how much are we being appealed to by like, wow, it looks great graphics wise versus the gameplay is so fantastic? I feel like I'm erring on the side of I'm cool with pixels or pixel art rather, if the gameplay is amazing. Whereas like some people are all about the, oh my God, it looks so real. That being said, when I got my when I got my Steam Deck at Christmas, I remember playing Jurassic World Evolution. And first of all, I could never play that on anything because it wasn't on the Mac, couldn't get it on Switch. You could only play it on PlayStation. And this just doesn't make sense for me to be playing on a console like that. So I couldn't really play it very often. It was like really rare. I would play it with my son on the TV in his room. So I got this. I was already excited that I could play it handheld. But the shadows and the reflections on the water, I was showing my husband, who is not a gamer, not interested at all. I honestly, it could have brought a tear to my eye. It was so fantastic that I really appreciated the difference. I mean, we've gone from the abomination that was Hogwarts Legacy on Switch, it made me not want to play it because it was so distracting how awful the graphics were, to then playing that. It really did make me realise the difference graphics can make when it's important. I think if you're going for a pixel art game, nobody cares. But if you are doing something like that, it has to perform. And when you go from Hogwarts, I still haven't downloaded the update for Hogwarts for Switch 2, but I'm excited to because apparently it's amazing. But when you go from that to something where I'm seeing every little shadow and reflection, it was amazing. And although I can't get Jurassic World Evolution, still, even the third one has been announced now, and that is still not announced for Switch 2, which is annoying. It's annoying, but I can get it on my Steam Deck. I'm just, for those of you with Switch 2, I really thought one of the big things of the Switch 2 was some of these games that were clearly, whether it be the graphics or the power or whatever, it wasn't able to come to Switch 2. I thought, oh, we're finally going to get some of those games on Switch. No, still no. That's frustrating. But for the games that I can compare, I would say they are now on a par. Like when I'm playing, like Palia, whichever you say, I think they're very, very similar now on the Switch 2 versus the Steam Deck. So in terms of like visual and gameplay, I'm not seeing a difference. My layman's eye is these are the same thing. But then I'm not really asking for much here. I just want, it's clear and vibrant enough for me, and that's that. A lot of people did say I should have got the OLED when I unveiled my deck, when I did like a bit of a review of my deck. But I feel like it's a bit like that study they did on income versus happiness. There's a point at which your life is as improved as it can be by money. And after that, your enjoyment kind of tapers off. For me, I think that's it. Like this is as good as it needs to be while running smoothly and being affordable for my gaming enjoyment. Both of these consoles are like, they are as good as I need them to be. So which should you choose? It's so hard. It's so hard. I've always been a Nintendo girl, but I think that's because they cornered the market with handhelds pretty early on. And I've always been like, from the beginning, from the original Game Boy, I had a yellow Game Boy that was a Donkey Kong Game Boy, and I loved it so much. All the accessories, the camera, didn't have the printer. That was crazy. Everything, every single iteration, the Advance, that SP thing that they did. I had the DS, I had the 3DS, or every single iteration that they have done of, I didn't have a Game Boy Color. But apart from that, every single one, I have participated in the Nintendo handheld revolution for my entire life. In my formative years, it was always Nintendo handheld. I don't have a lot of time to monopolize a TV or like spend hours alone in a room playing video games. It's just not what I can do. I am watch TV with my husband or my kids or whatever, and I'm playing a game at the same time, or we're playing a game together. That's how it made sense to me. For a long time, I played Sims on my laptop while we were watching TV. It's a more social way of playing video games when you have other life commitments and you don't want to be super antisocial. I have always leaned towards handheld for that reason, but now there are options. That does make things more complicated. The thing that always appealed to me about the Steam Deck, the reason that I got this, was that I could not play Steam games, or PC games rather, on my Mac. There were very few games that I wanted to play that I could also play on my Mac. It gave me access to all of those games, along with so many other games, but specifically the PC games that I couldn't play on my Mac and that weren't on Switch. I can also play with a mouse and keyboard. So I have like my gaming keyboard, which I also use for my job. I also have like a mouse connected all the time to the dock that I use for the Steam Deck. That just makes it so that any game that doesn't play well handheld, it basically, this becomes like a little mini PC. I plug it into my Mac, which I'm using as a screen through OBS, and I can play the games as if I've got a PC. It's magical. It opened up a whole new world of games for me. I have access to indie games that maybe won't ever come to Switch. I've got access to early access games that are like still in development that will take a long time. I mean, geez, we waited so long for that Stardew update. Switch users were like, oh, you've had it for so many months. It might have even been a year by the time we got it. That's the stuff that I have now access to through the Steam Deck. So you would think, well, then it's an obvious decision. It's the Steam Deck. But what about all the Nintendo IP? Father Christmas delivered my son's Switch the year it was released so that I could play Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was, can you remember? Everyone went mad for it. It was like, this is the best thing we've ever seen in our lives. It was fantastic. It was so exciting. And it's still exciting. Still, you see Zelda games and you're like, oh, there's a draw. There's something about it that is really, really special. And could I give that up? Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is still the game that I have the most hours in on my Nintendo account. And that is not even including all the hours I had in it when it was my son's Switch. I ended up buying a Switch Lite so I could play Animal Crossing. And then eventually when I decided that I wanted to start making content about video games, I bought the fully loaded Switch purely because I couldn't stream anything from a Nintendo Switch Lite. That was the only reason. I think I would have been happy with the Lite, to be honest. So take all of the things I'm telling you about, like screen resolution and stuff, with a pinch of salt, because I was happier with the smaller, worse screen. Could I give up Animal Crossing and its inevitable New Horizons sequel to just have a Steam Deck? I don't know. I know there are emulators that make it so that you can basically do whatever you want with a Steam Deck. There are workarounds. There are many videos on YouTube showing you do this, and you can basically play what you want. But I'm talking out of the box technology. I'm talking to those of us who are not prepared to get really into the weeds with the kind of behind the machine stuff. I have done some things to make games run better. Something about the Steam Deck that I absolutely love is that you can basically play whatever you want. The games that it's like this won't work. No, I'll try it anyway. And you can. Sometimes you need a mouse and keyboard. Sometimes it doesn't work at all, and then I get a refund. There's just that flexibility, but it's still missing that exclusive Nintendo content out of the box. The one thing I would want people to go away with, if you are really on the fence about these two consoles, is not to be intimidated by the Steam Deck, because it does work plug and play out of the box. It will work straight away, exactly the same way that your Switch works. There is no need to be like, oh, am I going to need... No, you won't have to do anything. If you download games that are specifically optimized for the deck, everything will play smoothly and everything will be fine. But there are loads of games that aren't technically optimized for the deck that still play perfectly fine. And you'll be able to find that out from the reviews. You can Google it if you want to. But again, if it doesn't work for you, you can return it. I haven't had any issues with Steam returns policy at all. And then also, if you do want to go, in this economy, can we afford two consoles? If you are going down the whole of like, maybe the Steam Deck and emulation and all these things, there's so many videos out there that make it so simple. Step by step, do this, type in this. I have followed some of those before and I don't feel particularly tech savvy, and they are really, really easy. Whenever I've done them, I'm like, I feel like a genius. It is available to you if you want to start getting into customizing and changing the experience. But again, that is an option. It's not something you have to do. You can still get a lot of enjoyment from all of the games that are available on Steam without doing any of that. Plus, the sales on Steam are unmatched. I was going to say there are very few sales on Nintendo and they've got a lot of sales at the moment, but I think that's probably like, let's get more people buying these games in the wake of the Switch 2. There are some strange sales, but things like Breath of the Wild, that's never gone on sale. It's still a really expensive game. If anything, it's more expensive now than it ever was. And there are tons of sales. Like, there's always something going on sale. There are games that you will get for like a couple of pounds, even free occasionally. You get a lot of free demos that you can use on Steam. Do you know, if I had to pick, it would be the Steam Deck. It would be the Steam Deck. I already have the Switch one, so I have access to Animal Crossing, as an example, and Zelda. If I had to choose, I would choose the Steam Deck. I would happily continue to play my Switch 1 and those physical games that I have and just pretend the Switch 2 doesn't exist and just shut my eyes when inevitably the new Animal Crossing comes out and I can't play it. That's what I would do if I had to choose between the two, because there are so many more games that you can play on the Steam Deck. You will spend less money overall, and later down the line, if you choose, there's just a ton. It just opens up into this endless customization that you're never going to get from Nintendo. So if I had to choose between the two, but ultimately, it's going to come down to games. It's going to come down to what you want to play. For me, there are hundreds of thousands more titles on Steam that I can play than there are on Nintendo. And so that has to be the way that I sway. But if most of the games that you play, because we do got so many hours in the day, hundreds of thousands of games, we're not going to play hundreds of thousands of games. If most of the games that you play are Nintendo IP, you're going to be Switch 2 every day of the week. A lot of the games that are fantastic on Steam, especially things like Fields of Mystery, I love Fields of Mystery so much, that will come to Switch eventually. Yes, it will be later, but you'll get a full game. You won't get any early access. It'll, all the bugs should have been fixed. You will get it eventually. All the games that are really, really fantastic should eventually make their way to a console near you, providing they don't take like crazy power. But that's what it has to come down to. Ultimately, these consoles now, at face value, straight out of the box, are so similar to me, to the layman, to the casual gamer, that it has to come down to the kind of games that you want to play. Either way, hopefully this was helpful, entertaining, useful, whatever. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't bought the Switch 2 already, it's not going anywhere, don't panic. There's nothing like, oh my god, I need this straight away, then just wait. Maybe there'll be a deal, maybe there'll be a sale, maybe there'll be a special edition that you want to buy, or maybe there won't, or maybe Animal Crossing new version will come out and you'll be like, that doesn't look like the kind of game I want, and I've got the Steam Deck and I'm much more happy with this. Maybe. I don't know yet, but right now I feel like they are so similar, and it's just going to come down to which games and which IP you are most interested in. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!